Well, hello, everyone. Happy Monday. I hope you all had a great weekend. Welcome to Live at 5. This is a stream that I do every day, pretty much, Sunday through Thursday on my main channel. And then on Fridays, we go to a different channel to do different things. And on Saturdays, we rest. We take the days off. But we're going to talk about a lot of different stuff going on today. I am on day 4 of what we now know is COVID. Which I originally thought it was just a cold. And then yesterday, before my 20 minutes before my happy hour stream, I find out that I actually have COVID. So that is what it is. But you know what? I'm feeling okay. I'm not gonna die. I'm not even gonna go to the hospital or any of those things. I'm feeling a little under the weather. My throat feels a little crappy. We're gonna power through and we're gonna do what we do, because just because I get sick doesn't mean the world stops. And what do you know, guys? Just because I get sick, that doesn't mean I want any of you to change anything about your life at all. Regardless of whether I got sick while being vaccinated or not, which of course we know I did. Because vaccines, people can get sick. I am living proof, YouTube. I don't want to hear any grief. I am living proof that people can, in fact, be vaccinated and get COVID. It happened in real life. So that is what it is, guys. I'm going to do the very best I can, but I know that you will all be understanding for maybe today, maybe tomorrow. Who knows how long these symptoms are going to last. Naruto says, Carlin, don't go into the light. Dude, I'm not going into any light. Please, you can't get rid of me that easy. You can't get rid of me that easy. God knows there are bitches on the internet who try, and normally their names start with K. I don't know what it is about people with K names and their propensity to bully me, but there have been a lot of K bitches on the internet that are trying real hard. I ain't going anywhere. No one's getting that satisfaction, darling. But we've got a full show in front of us today, guys. We are streaming on YouTube. We are streaming on Odyssey. We are streaming on Rockfin. Whatever platform you want to watch on is just fine. We've got a couple stories we're going to cover today. There's been a lot going on in the news today. There's been a lot going on. I don't know. We might even do some additional bonus stories depending on how far this all goes. But guys, just so you know, let's see. Because maybe we should start here. This is probably the most exciting thing. Now, because I have COVID, we're doing a little special treat. I think it's a special treat. I don't know how you guys are going to think. Because I have COVID, I decided to make lemons into lemonade, and we're going to do a little locals COVID promotion. And this is only good while I'm symptomatic. Now, I started this yesterday, right after I found out that I was sick with the disease that, is what it is. The virus that shall not be named. And I decided to have a little fun with it and make a promo code for my locals to give everyone a free month in locals, just to celebrate me finally joining the Natural Immunity Club. But what I decided to do this morning is I'm going to keep this promo running for as long as I am symptomatic. Now, I have now been symptomatic for 4 days because this started on Friday. So Friday, I had aches and pains. Saturday, I was out for the count. Yesterday was a little bit better. Today is a little bit better than yesterday. So you don't know how much longer I'm actually going to be symptomatic. So we got to take advantage of this while we can. If you are on YouTube, you're going to see a pinned comment at the top of the chat. But if you're not on YouTube, if you're on Odyssey or Rockfin, you could just head over to kb.locals.com/support and use the promo code COVID, and you will get a free month in my community. What's going to happen? It's going to take you to a screen that looks a little bit like this. Some of you, it might automatically pop it in, but if it doesn't, just go to promo code and then go COVID, apply, make sure it applies. You're going to get some green text if it does. That's going to give you a free month in my locals community, and it is perfect timing for it as well, because in 2 hours from right now, we have a locals community Zoom call, which is basically an open forum where you can come and join our Zoom and talk about whatever you want to talk about. Or if you're not comfortable talking, that's okay too. You can just sit back, listen to what other people are talking about, get to know some of the members of my locals community. Many of them are here right now. We have Sin, we have Janice, we have Patrice, we have Jess, we have George is here. So many great people in my locals already here in the chat right now. You're going to get to know them all in person. I say it all the time. I don't have the biggest community in locals, but I really do feel like I have the very best community in locals, just like really good, salt of the earth people. We have so much fun together. We take care of each other. We support each other. Every once in a while, there's a turncoat in my community, but they quickly get expelled because turncoats never ever last. We only keep the very best people in my locals community. George Andre Veloso Nunez says, ginger tea with lemon for the throat. I drink it regularly because I talk a lot for work. Oh, I know, man. I know. The throat is the worst part. No, the throat isn't the worst part of COVID for me. The worst part is actually chills. Oh, Judy's here too. Hey, Judy. So, no, the worst part of COVID for me was the chills on the first night. And again, I just thought I had a cold. I was like, why the hell am I so cold? It was the worst part. But the throat is more annoying than anything else. Hopefully, my voice will come back to me at some point. All right. Let's see. Let's jump right into it, shall we? Well, interesting thing happened. New York City is allowing non citizens to vote. Now, you all know I believe emphatically that the immigration process is in need of dramatic reform, like really bad reform. I have been through the immigration process. My husband was not exactly all the way legal when we got married. And what I mean by that is he came here legally. He came here completely legally. He overstayed his visa. We met. We fell in love. It was the classic romantic tale. He was about to get deported, and I said, "Okay, time for an ill-considered marriage." And then we got married, and then we spent the first 2 years of our marriage constantly navigating the immigration process, and it was crazy, and it sucked, and the reason that it sucked is that it is just so backed up, and this was 10 years ago. We've been married for over 10 years. The reason it sucked so badly is because the immigration process is so backed up that it just takes 18 months to do something when 2 months would probably do just fine for anything normal. So, I am not a fan of the immigration system. I think it is in need of dramatic reform. But I think this might be going a little bit too far on the other side, if I'm honest, allowing non-citizens to vote. Okay, we're going to take a read about this. Nick H says, sounding better. Thank you, Nick H. I'm hoping so. Dragonwater said, for me, the worst part about COVID was the muscle pain. But yeah, the chills. Oh, dude, like, I am so sore. Like, I feel like not sore. I'm just exhausted. Like, I feel like, ugh. Like, I have no energy. My body just aches. Like, I mean, it could be worse. It could absolutely be worse. I'm not like short of breath or anything. I don't think it's really hit my lungs that badly, but man, this sucks. Went and got all vaccinated. Didn't even help. Didn't even help. All right, let's read this here article from Axios. More than 800,000 non-citizens can vote in local elections after New York City Mayor Eric Adams allowed legislation to take effect on Sunday. Adams initially expressed concern over the legislation, which the city council approved a month ago. But the Democratic governor, he's not governor, he's mayor, isn't he? Mayor Axios ultimately supported the measure and allowed his 30-day time limit to veto the bill to expire, according to the AP. Why it matters. If the implementation is not curtailed by a judge, New York City will become the first major city in the country to extend voting rights to non-citizens per the AP. The first elections non-citizens would be allowed to vote in are in 2023. I believe that New Yorkers should have a say in their government, which is why I have and will continue to support this important legislation. Well, dude, I mean, I have mixed feelings about this because, on one hand, I do believe that people should have a say in the government in the place that they are living in. On the other hand, it seems like a backhanded way to fortify all future elections. That's really what it's about. Now, I will be fair. I think I think we need to look at different communities differently, right? I don't necessarily think that all non-citizens are inclined to vote for the Democrats forever. We can look at different populations within the Latino community, especially when you're talking about the Cuban immigrants. I think they tend to lean more conservative to be honest. So I don't necessarily think that all non-citizens are a slam dunk forever for the Democrats, but we all also need to be honest and say that this is just a way for them to fortify the elections for all time to come. Naruto said, F's in the chat for Bob Saget. My childhood is sad. Yeah, F's in the chat for Bob, guys. I'm really sad about it. I really hope the vaccine didn't have anything to do with it. Not that I'm speculating that it did. Consult the CDC for all your vaccine related questions. As we know, the CDC is our god here on the channel. F in the chat for Bob Psychic. Bob Saget. Oh god, I almost called him Bob Psychic. Oh my god. This is how sick I am. I blame COVID brain for that. But the Republicans are not taking this lying down, and they do plan to sue. A group of New York City Republicans filed a lawsuit on Thursday to block the new law that would allow 800,000 non-citizens to vote in local elections. The suit filed in Staten Island Supreme Court asked the judge to issue an injunction that prevents the Board of Elections and the mayor from implementing the law in any respect due to its unconstitutionality. Well, that was really my next question is like, how exactly are they getting around the Constitution with this particular law? Am I crazy to say that the Constitution should be pretty clear on who is allowed to vote and who is not allowed to vote? The law is clear, and ethics are even clearer. We shouldn't be allowing citizens of other nations to vote in our elections, full stop. We are only 2 weeks into the Adams administration, and he's already kowtowing to the radical city council. Well, that's the other part of this, man. Again, like, one part of me says, like, I kind of don't mind the idea of people having a say about the government where they live. But on the other hand, if you want to say in the government, become a US citizen. Go through the process. Sorry, guys, you're just going to have to deal with coughing. I was fine up until like 15 minutes ago. Then I started coughing, of course, because that's the way it always goes. If you want to stay in the law of the place that you live in, become a US citizen, man. I know it's a process. My husband is dragging his feet. He's been saying for a couple years now, he's like, I should really start that citizenship process. And I'm like, you go to it, Victor. Follow your bliss. Still hasn't done it. I think he will someday. I don't know why he hasn't, but like, that's part of the deal, man. If you want to vote, become a citizen. Dragonwater says the left doesn't give a F about the Constitution. They never have. No, I don't think that's true, Dragonwater. Remember, I come from the left and I do absolutely give a shit about the Constitution. I don't think it helps us to generalize in that way. We have to allow some grace, okay? We don't want to demonize them in the same way that they demonize us. That's when we become no better than them. The lawsuit is the only thing that will stop them from their ultimate goal of eradicating all lines between citizens and non-citizens, he said. Representative Nicole, who represents Staten Island and Brooklyn, called the new measure careless, claiming it dilutes the perspectives of U.S. citizens. Well, I don't actually think... See, man, this is where Republicans piss me off. That is not your best argument. That argument is starting to sound like, honestly, dangerously a little racist to me. And I don't throw around that term easily. But I think sometimes, I think, you know what? I'm just going to say it. I'm sick. I have COVID brain. I can't be held responsible. I think the right has a racism problem. I do. I'm not saying it as much as like the left would say it. I'm saying there are tones to the right that I do not like sometimes, and particularly around the context of immigration. And I thought this right after I left the left. And I remember within a couple months of like my initial like Trump rally article going viral, I got caught in a kerfuffle on Twitter where everyone was like, anchor babies should be outlawed. And I was like, it's the Constitution, man. You don't like it, change the Constitution. And I started hearing all this racist crap, like, I mean, overtly racist stuff about immigrants from the conservatives. I think they're like, again, I'm not saying this in the same way that the left says it, but the right has more of a problem here than they like to admit sometimes. And I think it comes out when we hit the immigration question. There are just better arguments to make. Just make the better arguments. This is nothing more important than preserving the integrity of our election system. That's a better argument. The right to vote is a sacred right given only to American citizens. The careless legislation violates the state constitution, dilutes the voices of American citizens, and is not in line with the views of the vast majority of our city. Well, I don't know about that, given the current state of New York City. And to be quite frank, I think that Republicans ceded the ground in New York City. There are many elections in New York that the Republicans don't even bother running for. They don't even bother. So I don't think it's true at all that, this isn't the view of the vast majority of the people in New York City, because the vast majority of the people in New York City are electing the Democrats to office. But part of the reason they're doing that is the Republicans literally give them no other choice. Literally gives them no other choice. So maybe this is both sides' fault. Who really knows? Plaintiffs in the suit include the Assemblyman Michael Riley and Michael blah blah blah. Along with local GOP members, constitutional experts have raised legal concerns about the law ahead of its passage. The state constitution, Article 2, Section 1, grants the right to vote in all elections to every citizen 18 or older. Every citizen shall be entitled to vote at every election for all officers elected by the people and upon the question submitted to the vote of the people, provided that such citizen is 18 years old or over and shall have been a resident of this state and of the county, city, or village for 30 days next preceding an election. Anyone reading the New York State election law in plain English can see that it prohibits foreign citizens from voting. Yeah, I'm going to agree with that. If they're calling them citizen in the law, then I'm going to agree with that. I wasn't sure, but I think that's where I'm going to come down on it. The new law was passed in December by the city council despite objections from several members and was given the thumbs up by Eric Adams on Saturday when he announced he was allowing the measure to pass. While I initially had some concerns about one aspect of the bill, I had a productive dialogue with my colleagues in government that put those concerns at ease. Oh, I bet. He had a conversation with his colleagues in government. Oh my goodness. They were like, Eric, do you want to win re-election in perpetuity? And he was like, yes, I do. And then they were like, okay, let the law pass. And he was like, okay. Brent says, try voting in Mexico not being a Mexican citizen. It won't happen. Are they racist? That's not actually the point I was making, Brent. I'll take your money, man, but that wasn't the point I was making, and do not try to twist my words. I am in no mood. I have had COVID for 4 fucking days. I am in no mood. See, this is what the right does. I'm sorry, guys. This is what you do. You deliberately obfuscate the point. You try to make it about something else, and you end up losing ground in the process. Literally no ground was gained except for $5 in my pocket in the course of that exchange. It was unnecessary. But thank you for the $5. The bill, sponsored by ex-councilman, allows non-citizens to participate in local elections by expanding voter eligibility to green card holders, which is about 10% of the city's population, and recipients of deferred action. So we'll see how this goes for New York City. I just thought this was interesting. I don't know. Are other cities gonna follow suit in this? I could absolutely see San Francisco following suit in this. I could absolutely see Los Angeles following suit in this. I don't think it would go so well in Miami. They're not going to try to do this in Miami. Miami, it would backfire spectacularly because we all know that this is about nothing more than fortifying all future election in deeply blue areas. Moving right along, I thought that this would be a nice little follow-up to that. Elijah Schaefer tweeted this out, and I wanted a chance to read it. I skimmed it earlier, but I wanted to take a look at this article from The Federalist. Why America's ruling class is so incompetent. Is it incompetence? Is it corruption? Is it a mixture of the two? Let me see if I can make the text on these things a little bit bigger so you guys can actually read them. Let me see. Make it a little bit. I don't know if I can make it bigger. Oh no. No, it's about as big as that's going to go. That's good enough. Elites are inevitable. Their legitimacy and continuity is not. Ours lack the virtue and wisdom needed for good government and leadership. I mean, does anyone really expect that politicians are going to come to the position with virtue and wisdom? Serious question. Do we have any expectation at all that politicians are going to come to office and exhibit virtue and wisdom? I no longer have that expectation. Does anyone in the chat have that expectation? Oh, Metastep, you're saying it's blurry? Like it looks okay to me, dude. I'm not sure what's going on. No, I do not have that expectation at all. Dragonwater says, is it that America's ruling class is older than the dinosaurs? I don't think it has to do with age. I don't. I think it has to do with they're utilizing their office to the very, very, very best of what they can utilize it for. It is the American dream. Savret says the people have only the people. The one world conspirators, the bad guys, believe this world schism is part of the poison and the cure in one shift. I agree with that, Savrets. I do agree with that. Let's see what Nathaniel argues. Our national elite is united enough to have the vices of a ruling class, but not the virtues. Again, I have to ask, has the ruling class ever had virtues? Can anyone in the chat name one time or place in all of human history, all across the world? You guys are smart, you read up. Can you name a single time or place in all of human history where the ruling class had virtue? I can't think of one. Maybe I'm being cynical. Maybe I'm being blackpilled. Maybe I'm just sick. Who knows? But if you can think of one, chat it in. Let me know. In particular, they are cohesive enough to be perceived as oppressive by much of the populace, but they are rarely gracious and conciliatory when needed. They know how to make enemies, but not friends. Savret says, no, I can't. Oh, Metastep, I mean, made a good point. 1776 in America. I think you can make that argument. Marcus Aurelius. I don't know enough about ancient Greece. I don't know enough about it. Like, ancient Greece is one of those things that, like, I want to read up on, and, like, I would really like to be able to be more knowledgeable about that particular time period and era, but I'm just not. So I don't know if it's, like, idealized or if that was real. King Arthur, same thing. Was it I'm sure it was idealized with King Arthur. I don't know. Culturally and ideologically, America's elites have consolidated into a regime with big tech, the legacy media, academia, big business, the entertainment industry, and of course, the leaders of the Democratic Party all singing from the same hymnal, even if they sometimes squabble over the key. But many citizens refuse to join in. Well, at least they're absolutely correct that there is really no difference between the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. They're all the same. That's true. Our elites have nothing to appeal to but themselves. The American ruling class thus faces an ancient problem. How do the political, cultural, and economic winners convince everyone else to accept the system? How do elites secure the consent of non-elites? Members of our ruling class cannot appeal to religion or immemorial custom to justify their place. Indeed, they cannot appeal to much of anything beyond their supposed merits, both personal, they earn their place, and as a class. They believe themselves to be wise and leading us well. But the superlative merits of our ruling class are less obvious to the rest of us. Thus, hardly a day goes by without the New York Times, Washington Post, and other legacy media outlets warning that some villain or other, Donald Trump, Fox News, Facebook misinformation, the Senate, the Supreme Court, even local leaders and parents, are a threat to our democracy. By democracy, they mostly mean the wishes of the ruling class. Oh, speaking of which, side note, I was thinking about covering this. This seems like the perfect opportunity. This was reported on Zero Hedge yesterday. Do you guys remember that the DOJ counterterrorism memo about the parents? Let me see if I can make this bigger. You guys remember this memo that caused all this kerfluffle for Merrick Garland? The DOJ is still refusing to withdraw this memo. I swear I was not coughing up until 15 minutes before this stream started. The DOJ is refusing to withdraw this memo. Speaking of elite corruption, apparently they issued this statement. In that letter, the DOJ had to say about why the FBI's counterterrorism division was involved in local school board matters. The DOJ just said, we're not going to withdraw the memo. So the feds may be keeping track of school board meetings, even if it creates a horrible chilling effect. If you are all wondering about a status update on that memo. Let's get back to other threats to our democracy. Conflating the regime with democracy has its benefits. It allows elites to dismiss the opposition as illegitimate, even when the opposition has majority support. This, along with the elite belief in their own superiority, moral as well as meritocratic, justifies the regime. And it justifies them in wielding their enormous cultural and economic power as well as political power when they have it to punish and exclude dissenters. Just like the DOJ is doing with the school board, just like the school board did to me when they banned me from all school board meetings. Savritz said, in ancient Greece, Aristotle's view on natural slaves might be relevant. No man is a slave if better off free, can be related to how the UN thinks. Thank you, Savritz. Elites' hypocrisy undermines their credibility. For instance, the regime has decided that bigots, by which they mean anyone who thinks that men shouldn't dominate women's sports or that marriage is the union of a man and a woman, should be suppressed by the legal system and by the monopolistic tech platforms that now constitute the public square. Listen, man, conservatives have got to get rid of this dream. I'm sorry, guys. Gay marriage is a thing. It is not going anywhere. I don't know why you guys keep bringing it up. I don't know why conservatives continue to beat the drum on social issues that will only cause them to lose more and more and more and more and more voters. Can someone in the chat explain this to me? Like, marriage between gay couples is not going anywhere. It's just not. And then here's the argument that conservatives will say. They'll say, well, the government shouldn't even be involved in marriage in the first place. Well, that ship has done sailed. I'm sorry. Is that the hill you want to die on? That the government shouldn't be involved in marriage in the first place? I mean, you can make an argument for it, but that ain't changing anytime soon. And that really shouldn't be at the top of the list of problems that we're trying to solve right now when gas is like 50% more now than it was a flipping year ago. That's the hill you want to die on. Okay. Conservatives keep picking these stupid goddamn battles, make it impossible to support them every single time. Every time. Dragonwater says marriage was always a business and a method of keeping track of the population. I mean, maybe. But it's like, as Sin saying, it's like, this is a dead issue. This has already been decided. I don't even know why we're talking about it. The regime has similarly decreed that racist, by which they mean anyone who won't repent the dogmas of critical race theory and anti-racist huskers like Ibram X. Kendi and Robin DiAngelo, should be suppressed throughout public education, academia, and even the business world. Similar trends abound throughout the centers of entertainment, finance, culture, and even the newly woke military. So another fun story that came out today, and we're not going to read this all in full, but check this out. This is from Fox News today. Critical race theory related ideas found in mandatory programs at more than 230 colleges and universities. So we're talking about what colleges and universities are doing is they're putting the anti-racist bullshit into the mandatory classes that every single student at the college has to take. And there are 4,000 colleges and universities around the country. I guarantee you more than 230 of them are doing this. Fox News just happened to look at those 230. Or whoever did this report. I might cover this article on a different day, so we're going to save it. But Just wanted to speak to that point that they're making there. There is nothing democratic about this. Indeed, it is the elites who threaten our democracy, such as when corporate media colluded with big tech to censor accurate reporting about Biden family scandals, or big business imposes economic sanctions on red states over everything from election laws to LGBT issues. The hypocrisy of it all rankles. Woke capital CEOs wave rainbow flags and Black Lives Matters banners at home while using slave labor abroad. Democrats and supposed policy experts pushing to ban misinformation are often leading disseminators of it, from the Russian collusion hoax to the dismissal of the lab leak theory of COVID's origins. Just T says, please mount that like button because I'm sick and I'm working when I don't have to. I appreciate that, Just T. Thank you so much. When society's shepherds function as a herd, this combination of arrogance, incompetence, and malice undermines the legitimacy of elite power. A prudent ruling class would be self-aware enough to realize this vulnerability. You know what I think the Federalists might be making the argument for that I'm less than inclined to? What the Federalist, I think, is making the argument for is just a different set of ruling class. See, I have this crazy idea that people should be their own rulers. I don't believe in this ruling class nonsense. If this is the argument that I find out the Federalist is making, I'm going to be very upset. A prudent ruling class would be self-aware enough to realize this vulnerability. It would be wise for them to be less culturally aggressive, economically greedy, and politically domineering, but our elites lack the coherence and self-restraint to do so. That is exactly what they're about to argue, isn't it? My God. Their unity is sufficient for them to be feared or hated, but not enough to make sound strategic decisions. Rather, they function as a herd, with individuals mostly responding to the pressure exerted by those next to them. And the internet has brought them closer together than ever. Even when they are physically apart, they remain within the same milieu, and that milieu is called Twitter. Those within the herd disdain outside opinions, and there aren't enough insiders willing to challenge the herd. The in-group incentive almost all run towards doubling down, and there is little status to be gained by challenging the herd orthodoxy. Dude, I'm sorry. This whole paragraph right here, that's true on both sides. That is true of the right, and that is true of the left. It is true on both sides. I am living proof of what the right does to people who challenge them. They have canceled me over and over and over and over and over again for it. That's true of both sides. There is not one side that is more innocent than the other. There is just one side that has control over the major institutions, and that is the left. And that is the only reason that the left is more dangerous than the right, is that the left controls the institutions. If the right controlled the institutions, there would be the same type of authoritarianism. It would just be around different elements. It would be around things like gay marriage and trans issues and gender stuff and all of the social issues that the right cares about. That's where we would see them acting as authoritarians. They can't do that right now because they don't control any of the institutions. I think this is a point that we should keep hitting on over and over and over again, because I'm going to be quite frank, I have equal disdain for both sides. Absolutely equal. Now, I do think that the left is more dangerous. The woke left is absolutely more dangerous than the woke right, but only because they have the power. If the right had the power, they'd be just as dangerous. And I do think we need to keep this in mind, because it's like, we have to think about this, because, we're going to talk a lot about fighting the left coming up on my channel and on my second channel as well, Actively Unwoke. But the problem is, okay, if we can get the woke left removed from their positions of power of major institutions, what do we replace them with? Because it can't be the woke right. They're going to do exactly the same thing, but they might have a different flavor to it, but functionally it's going to be the same thing. Who do we replace them with? Do we just let all the institutions burn to the ground? I don't know the answer to this. I really don't. But I do think the first step is acknowledging that there's a problem. There's a problem that both sides act exactly the same, because then it's like who gets put in charge? Because people who want to be in leadership positions should be the very last people put into leadership positions. Savret says the adept occultists believe being androgynous is to be closer to God, how God is neither or. As an organism, when women knew no man and man knew no woman, that's what the elites are creating profane. I mean, I guess, but that's not what the elites are creating. What the elites are creating are specific. Well, I guess, in some respects, I've seen it be both ways. I mean, we've definitely watched presentations during happy hour for Actively Unwoke where we've seen a definite focus on making everything non-binary. So I do think that aligns with what Savrits is saying. But there are also times where we've seen an outright double down on hard gender categories from both the right and the left. So I don't know. Just look at J.K. Rowling and Dave Chappelle, who have been threatened and stigmatized for daring to question the transgender dogma. While they are too big to cancel, the fury directed at them is still an effective warning to those who don't have as much money and fame. Furthermore, even when the herd does change its preponderous course, there is little gratitude shown towards those, whether on the inside or the outside, who were right in the first place. This is why interesting left and left center writers are on Substack. The legacy media won't publish them. Well, no one ever apologizes when they're wrong. I'm sorry, this idea that the left is the only one that doesn't apologize when they're wrong, I have yet to get any apology for the right for the white identitarian stuff that I did, which we're going to talk about when we get to the Lindsay Ellis letter. I have yet to get an apology by all the conservatives I was lied about, or who lied about me, when I was absolutely correct in everything I was saying. Again, that's true on both sides. You were never going to get the apology that you were owed. The regime is making enemies. Thus, the ruling class struggles to curb its excess, even though doing so would strengthen its position. For example, our ruling class has been slow to accept that it was foolish to excuse riots and embrace soft on crime policies. Likewise, elites have continued pushing for derivatives of critical race theory and other ideological indoctrination in schools, despite parents revolting. The examples also show why the regime is persistently producing enemies. The consolidation of a ruling class leaves us a lot of people on the outside, as well as some on the inside, who are revolted and looking to get out. Dissidents range from ordinary people to local leaders. Oh, here's where they're gonna... I cannot even believe this. Come on, Federalist. Tucker Carlson is just a dissident. Josh Hawley, Ron DeSantis. And I like all three of those people. I like Tucker Carlson, I like Josh Hawley, I like Ron DeSantis, but there are a lot better dissidents than them who have used elite credentials to lead the opposition. The right is not the opposition. I'm sorry. Tucker Carlson, Josh Hawley, and Ron DeSantis are not leading the opposition. Maybe you can make the argument for Ron DeSantis the best. They ain't leading the opposition. But Tucker Carlson, I'm sorry. I like him a lot and I like Josh Hawley a lot. They're controlled opposition at best. They ain't leading nothing. They're controlled opposition. The populace can win because despite the regime's democratic pretensions, the people are not in favor of their radical ideological fads. Elites are inevitable. Their legitimacy and continuity is not. Ours lack the virtue and wisdom needed for good governance and leadership. Instead of expertise, they offer incompetence, malice, and herd-like conformity to self-serving ideological fads. Hopefully, political defeat and cultural failure will force a reckoning. Well, if this is the best argument that you have, Federalist, I was expecting so much more for this. I saw this article. People were giving it a lot of praise. I was like, this could be a great thing to read. I was expecting a lot more. This article basically boiled down to, we don't like that the left runs the institutions. We want to run the institutions. That was the basis of this article. Oh, I hope they do better. I really do. I genuinely do. I want them to do better, but they need to look at their own side a little bit more critically. This is why not belonging and not adhering to a political tribe, I think, is the absolute best way to go. Listen, I was an independent. I left the Democratic Party in February of 2020. After 20 years, I was an independent through all of 2020. I joined the Republican Party for about 15 minutes at the beginning of 2021, mostly to spite Lauren Witzke, because she was like, Carolyn, you'll never be a Republican. And I was like, oh yeah, Lauren, I went to town hall and I filled out the piece of paper. Then I left the Republican Party shortly after that and joined the Libertarians. I actually joined the Libertarians before I even left the Republican Party because in New Hampshire I can actually be in both. But then I decided to go all in with the Libertarians. Anyway, what I'm saying with that is that like I don't really have allegiance to a political tribe. I feel pretty good about the Libertarians. I don't necessarily feel like leaving at the moment, but I also happen to be in a really libertarian state that has a really, really good libertarian party. It's not like that everywhere. So I think that my advice for people would be don't get so entrenched in what your tribe wants that you stop being critical of how they're doing in the fight. Because if I look at the conservatives and the Republicans and everyone on the political right now, they I don't view them as any better than the left. I just view them as out of power. And those are two different things. Dragonwater said, the reckoning must happen in the human soul to take back their personal power. That is very true, Dragonwater. And I think that that is the number one thing most people can work on right now is honestly, stop even worrying about the political nonsense, the back and forth, the tribes, the whatever. Focus on yourself. This is where I've kind of come out to in the past several months is that I think that most people would benefit most from focusing on themselves and how they can become empowered in their experience, regardless of what's going on around them. And that is what we are going to be talking about a lot in my locals community. We have a community Zoom call coming up in a little over an hour that you all can join. And the best way to join it is by becoming a member and using the promo code COVID. If you are watching on YouTube, you will see this pinned to the top of the chat. You can get a free month in my locals only while I am symptomatic with COVID, which could end tomorrow. I have symptoms today. I could have symptoms tomorrow. I might not have symptoms tomorrow. Who really knows? But this promo code for a free month in locals will only be good while I'm symptomatic. So it's what you want to do is head over to kb.locals.com/support, put the promo code COVID right in. That's going to get you a free month. Get into the community. Look for this post, and you will be able to access our locals supporter Zoom, which will get started in a little over an hour. Guys, please mount that like button if you haven't done so already. Savrit says, I illuminated more than that article from a few super chats. Are they that distracted and corrupt in your opinion? I mean, I'm honestly shocked at how bad that article was. I skimmed it earlier. I was like, this doesn't look that bad. I didn't think it was going to be that bad. But this is why I'm just really bored with the political right. I don't think that they're self-reflective at all. I'm not saying individuals here, if you're watching in the chat or on the replay, I'm not saying you as an individual. I don't know you as an individual, so I'm not making a generalization about you personally. I'm just saying in general, as a group, I don't see the right being self-reflective at all, and it really aggravates me. They could win. They would win so much more if they actually just did a little self-reflection. Dragonwater said, may you never have COVID again. I mean, who the hell knows? I got COVID while vaccinated. Who the hell knows? But I say this, guys, I really do want the right to win. Well, ultimately, I want the libertarians to win, but that's not going to happen anytime soon, and we have to be honest about that. But I do actually want the right to win. I do want them to take responsibility. If I give critical feedback, it's because I want them to win. I just wish they would take it. All right, guys. Well, the last thing I wanted to cover on the stream today is I wanted to talk about Lindsay Ellis, which I'm going to be honest, I'm not a fan of Lindsay Ellis. I've never really watched Lindsay Ellis except when she's gotten in like a social media kerfuffle and I'm like, what is going on? Who is this and why do I care? Let's see. Is that big enough for you guys to see? I'll try to make it a little bit bigger. Ooh, that's not going to work at all. It's the same size. Okay, that's about as big as that's going to go. Now, I'm cheap and I didn't want to join Lindsay Ellis's Patreon to get access to her post, so I found it on Reddit. And what I want to do is I've read part of Lindsay. So Lindsay Ellis is like this massive YouTube celebrity, whatever, does these video essays that a lot of people like. And she just up and quit 2 weeks ago. She up and quit and said, I'm not doing it anymore. Millions of followers, thousands of Patreons. And I have to admit that I skimmed some of her letter as to why. And some of it just really resonated with me. I had a tough year last year, man. People who are in my locals know how hard it was. I was canceled on multiple different occasions by the political right, not by the left, by the right. I was left feeling very discarded. And what some of the things I saw in this essay, and I'm going to speak to them specifically, are things that I absolutely felt from the right last year. And so some of it resonated with me. And now I'm saying that, but I'm also not going to let Lindsay Ellis off the hook, because my perception of this is that she's quitting because she got mobbed by SJW bullies, like social justice warrior people, that she is at least partially responsible for cultivating. Because Lindsay Ellis is very woke. Very, 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 very woke. And so the fact that she has woke mobs after her and bullying her, while I'm sympathetic to that, she did have a hand in creating those woke mobs. So I think there's a balance to this. Now, do I think that it's okay for someone to be bullied ever, regardless of their role? Yeah, I don't think that's good. I don't think that's a good idea. No, not acceptable. What most people think is bullying isn't actually bullying, though. I will say that. I don't know the extent of it. Maybe she will illuminate it in this article, but I will tell people, just for background research. So I spent about 10 years actually studying workplace bullying. I wrote my doctoral dissertation about workplace bullying. I have looked at a lot of different circumstances, and I can very easily identify what is bullying and what is not bullying. And I'm not entirely convinced that she was undergoing bullying, but maybe we'll illuminate that in this letter. But what I do want to say is that, like, regardless of whether she contributed to the situation or not, that doesn't actually negate the feelings of hopelessness that she may have had. And I do think that it is important to acknowledge those feelings. And I do think it's important to say that two things can be true at once. She can, on one hand, be a woke leftist that has inspired many other woke leftists, and that can be true. And on the other hand, she can be treated in a way that she didn't really deserve and was out of proportion to what she actually did. And both of those things can be true at once. Just because she may have inspired a woke left culture does not mean that she automatically deserves to be bullied into quitting a career. I'm sorry, I just don't accept those two things. I just don't. I think bullying is awful. I have been the target of bullying in multiple occasions through my life. I was bullied in the workplace. That's how I started studying workplace bullying. I've experienced a lot of social media bullying very, very recently. I get it, man. I get it. And we're going to talk about it as we read through this letter. And I'm going to give you guys some insight into different experiences I've had, and you can take them for what they're worth. Savrit says, projecting onto the world and onto others. Let's take a look. Walking away from the omeletas. I don't know what that word is. This was going to be a YouTube video, but I just don't have it in me to invite that kind of scrutiny to be the last in the sick, sad line of YouTubers who get all weepy on camera and cry about how they just don't want to do this anymore. Boo, hoo, hoo. I had planned to move video content to Nebula, but I realize now that doing that is just keeping wombs wide open. My life ended 9 months ago. What has been taking up bandwidth ever since then has been a ghost. It's almost funny how many people will insist I have lost nothing, because subscriber count is the only metric for success and cancel culture doesn't exist. One YouTube channel chugging along on algorithmic inertia is not success. It's just an engine driving on fumes. So when I was originally scanning this letter, it was this line that kind of stuck out to me initially when I was thinking about reading it on the stream. My life ended 9 months ago. What's been taking up bandwidth ever since has been a ghost. I absolutely identify with that. I absolutely do. The worst cancellation I ever experienced was in June of last year, June 2021. It was when a combination of legitimate white identitarians started it, and then Cassandra Fairbanks's crowd mobbed on top of it. And there were a whole bunch of grapers thrown in there. And there is overlap between those three crowds. There's absolutely overlap between actual legitimate white identitarians, Cassandra Fairbanks crowds, because Cassandra Fairbanks fucking loves these people, and grapers. There's overlap between all those three, but there's also separation between all those three. I don't want to get into the details of it. But I had thousands and thousands and thousands of people across a variety of platform coming at me, and I absolutely identify with what she wrote, "My life ended 9 months ago." I don't think I have been the same since June and undergoing that bullying, and it's been ever since June for me, and I'm not making any sort of confession here, guys. I'm not gonna say that I'm giving up, 'cause I'm not. I'm not fucking going anywhere, you can count on that, but I've thought about quitting almost every single day since then. And, and there are still days when I'm like, "What the hell am I even doing? Why am I even bothering?" Feeling like a shell of my former self, the person that I used to be. And it's one of those things that, like, you can't quite put a finger on what made it so bad. You can't quite put a finger on it. And maybe for me, it was not just that time, but then it was the fact that Adam goddamn Krigler took advantage of it and let his entire channel attack me for 3 fucking hours on his stream where he made thousands of dollars by them attacking me, and then he has the gall to go and say she wasn't telling the truth when I laid out evidence of everything that I said was true. Maybe it was how many people I had stabbed me in the back since then based on that one issue. I don't know if it was just that for me or if it was the culminating things, but I absolutely do identify with the line, "My life ended 9 months ago." What has been taking up bandwidth ever since has been a ghost. One of the reasons that I'm focusing in on self-development work is that's what I've had to focus on in the past several months in order to keep doing this. And I'm committed to this. I'm not fucking going anywhere. But that hit home for me in a way that I don't know that I ever really would have understood had I not been through it. And maybe I'll talk a little bit more about that as the stream goes on. Maybe I'll talk a little bit more about that. But let's keep moving through this letter. Just T, thank you. I appreciate the super chat. Yeah, I mean, Johnson, like, I told the truth. I got canceled for telling the truth. And everything I said was later backed up, but it is what it is. Many will say that this is being melodramatic, that my life isn't over, that there was absolutely nothing stopping me from brushing myself off and building back up goodwill and shutting up and playing the game. I identify with that too. Like, listen, I obviously didn't stop. And my life isn't over. My life isn't over. I'm still alive. I'm still kicking. She's still alive. She's still kicking. But that's not the point. The point is that it like maybe it might sound a little dramatic, but I will say, like, it hurts you on, like, a spiritual level. And I am just fine with being a role model of what it means to survive cancellation after cancellation, but I need to be real with you guys, it does hurt on a spiritual level. It absolutely hurts. And it hurts to see the true colors of people that you considered friends. It hurts to see that they aren't the people that you thought that they were. It hurts to see the darkest side of human nature. And I saw the darkest side of human nature. After I got canceled in June, I was canceled by really, really dark, bad people. Really dark, bad people. Very, very bad, low energy. You can go back and watch some of the streams on my channel at that time. And I embarked on after I got thrown under the bus on Adam's show, I embarked on a weeks-long project of actually researching these deep, bad, dark people. And that was what led to that anti-white article that I published and that I've talked about so much. But that was hard. That sucked the soul right out of me. And then there was all sorts of other stuff going on around it that I just really have not been the same since. And hopefully I'll be able to get my joy back someday. I really do hope I will. And I don't want anyone to feel sorry for me because I did it to myself. These are choices that I made, but I do wanna be very real and tell you guys, like, it was really, really effing hard. Really effing hard. Oh, yeah, I heard multi-driver that ARC has COVID. I did hear that. I mean, I hope it's light. I don't want anyone to get sick. So we have, Lindsay Ellis her life isn't over. Nothing's stopping her from brushing off, picking up the game, getting back in the goodwill, and I tried that, she says. In a way, I suppose it's good that I did because I needed to learn the hard way that it was never going to work. That there is no unfuckingness. You can't find the energy if there's nothing left to convert to it. You can't be a better person if you are nothing but a hollow shell of one. I mean, I would say that I think that I don't think that there is ever a time where things are over in the way that Lindsay might be portraying them. She's still so young, man. She is still so young. I remember when I was that young, and she was doing this a long time. I thank God all the time that I was not on YouTube when I was younger. But what I want you guys to hear is that no matter how bad it gets, and I'm saying this from a person that's, like, not in, like, the greatest headspace, like, with all this shit at the moment, like, no matter how bad it gets, there's always opportunities to start over. There's always opportunities to build yourself back up, and it's not even about the audience. I don't view this I think part of what, like, her problem is she's viewing it as building back up goodwill. I frankly have reached a place with this where no offense, guys in the chat. I love you and I adore you and I appreciate the support, but I'm approaching this from a place of trying to please myself and be happy with myself and what I'm doing, regardless of what the audience thinks. And I think if Lindsay had focused on herself and doing what she wanted to do, regardless of what the audience thought, maybe that would have helped her out. Maybe just focusing on what makes you happy, what brings you joy, what brings you passion. Hey, maybe it's taking a break from YouTube if you need to. Maybe making videos on being public on the internet doesn't bring you life anymore, doesn't inspire you, and that's okay too. That's okay too. But I hope that she does get the help that I hope that this helps her to find the person she is again. Maybe honestly, maybe she just lost who she is in the course of trying to please an audience or trying to build back credibility or any of these things or be a brand. Like I've had so many conversations with people about optics. Oh, Carlin, you can't say this. You can't tweet that. How dare you? Think about optics, darling. And I'm like, if I spent all day worrying about what other people thought, that would be maddening to me, and maybe that's what Lindsay started to do. She started worrying so much about what other people thought that she lost herself in the process. Nick H, thank you for the super chat. Do not give the left and the right the satisfaction by admitting defeat. Head up and be defiant till the bitter end. Live your state motto. Like I said, Nick, I'm not going anywhere. I may be a little down in the dumps, and God knows I'm sick, so that's probably not helping. It's not helping my resolve. I have less defenses. I have less energy to focus on this stuff. But I promise I'm not going to quit. I'm not going I've got a book coming out in April, man. I'm not going anywhere, please. Many will say this is being melodramatic, that my life isn't over, that there was absolutely nothing stopping me from brushing my we already read this. We already read this. Jesus Christ. COVID brain. COVID brain. 2021 has been the worst year of my life. I'm traumatized by it. To this day, I still have people scolding me by how I handled it, that I should have handled it differently, that I should have controlled my stands as if I had the capability to know what any of these people were even saying to strangers on Twitter while I was something blood for weeks on end. I mean, I do identify with her in this. I absolutely believe that she probably was traumatized. I absolutely believe it. Thank you, Patrice. I really appreciate your kind words. No, I absolutely do believe that Lindsay Ellis was probably traumatized, and some people might say, well, she was canceled on Twitter over this stupid tweet she made about I don't even know, like, The Last Airbender. I don't know what that is. Don't cancel me. I don't know what that is. I'm old. So that seems like a stupid thing to be traumatized over, but when it's your community coming at you, listen, guys, here's the thing. It's not about the subject matter. It is not about the subject matter. It's about the fact that people that she thought were in her corner turned on her. And whether she earned it or whether she didn't earn it, that's a really jarring experience to go through. It's got to be a really jarring experience. Does anyone know how old Lindsay Ellis is? I have no idea. I'll watch the chat for that answer. But let's keep reading. The worst thing about this whole thing is that I can't even admit this trauma because of all the rhetorical devices people have already come up with to dismiss it. That centering my own pain is evidence of not listening. Does it occur to these people that you can listen and disagree with other people's conclusions? That I'm weaponizing my fragile white womanhood or whatever to say, having thousands upon thousands of people who you have never met hate you and say whatever will get them the most updoots is traumatizing. I mean, she has a point here too. She has a point here too. In that, again, she doesn't know most of the people that are doing this. They might know her. Oh, she's 37? She's way older than I thought she was. She's good for her, though. She doesn't look 37. Good for her. You know what? That actually puts a completely different perspective on it for me. Maybe she just got sick of this shit. Maybe she just got sick of it, man. Your 30s are the time when you start to run out of fucks to give. If you have not run out of fucks to give by the time you're 40, you're not living life. So maybe it's just her age. She was like, screw this. And she's a Sagittarius too, so she's like a wanderer. She will wander right on to her next great adventure. So I want to say this though. So like what she's talking about here is not even being able to talk about the trauma that this caused her. I felt exactly the same way. I still feel the same way. Dude, I have this mob of bullies. I have a literal mob of people who live to hate me and do actually bully me every single day online. I can't talk about it. Because anytime I talk about it, people are like, "Carlin, you're punching down. You're punching down. Why are you even talking about it? Why do you let them bother you?" Well, they've been bullying me every single day for almost 2 years. They've doxed my house. They attack my followers. They attack my supporters. They like go after my supporters. Lately, they've been DMing my supporters lies about me to try to turn them against me, and they are turning some people against me. That's real. That fucks with your head. Let me tell you what. And on the scale that Lindsay Ellis is at, which is so much bigger than my scale, it's like magnitudes larger than my scale. I bet you that she felt very alone. I bet you that she felt very, very alone, that she couldn't talk about this. You know, I have this one thing that I particularly get bullied about, which is the hotel incident. This is like the one thing that they have, which is that I got wrongfully kicked out of a hotel while I was on sleeping medication and put out on the side of a road, and I was actually put in danger, and I could barely even walk because I was so tired and on sleeping medication. And this caused me actual trauma. Like I couldn't sleep in hotel rooms for months, and I was traveling every single weekend. I could not sleep in hotel rooms for months, and I couldn't talk about it with anyone. Because anytime I talked about it, it'd be like, well, you have a platform, Carlin. Why would you let this bother you? You have a platform. Well, like, guess what, guys? When you have actual trauma happen to you and you can't talk about it, it does actually eat you up inside. I had to go to 2 different trauma therapists to like put a stop to the not sleeping in the hotel thing. This stuff is real. And I really I wish that people would like not treat these things as punchlines. So what if a person has a platform? So what if a person has millions of followers or subscribers or whatever else? They're still a person. They're still a person. Take all their subscribers away, they're just a person. Just like you. They're no different than you. I wish people would have a little bit more empathy. Dragonwater says Lindsay started on that guywithglasses.com in 2003. Oh, she's been around a long time. If she lasted this long, good for her. Good for her. That people I used to know would sit there and lie about me on twitter.com to the tune of thousands of retweets and tens of thousands of likes, and I just had to sit there and take it. Oh my god, do I identify with that? My favorite are the people who dismiss any potential harm I might have incurred as justified because I am a wealthy white woman. I am not wealthy. While the same people's hearts positively bleed for Britney Spears. Well, okay, so she's getting a little woke in this entire paragraph. And again, I want to acknowledge that Lindsay Ellis is the one putting the woke bullshit out there. And so there's a little bit of like reaping what you sow. But again, I have to empathize with her a little bit because I know what it's like to have people lie about you on Twitter. I know what it's like to have people you considered friends and confidants share screen grabs out of context of private conversations to make you look like the evil bad guy and them look like the innocent victim, Karen White. I know what that's like. And then to not be able to say anything, to not be able to talk about it because you have the platform and they don't. I know what that's like. And it's not fun. I mean, I guess if you've never had this happen to you, just think about what it would be like for you if someone you were close with all of a sudden started publicly berating you in every possible way that they could. And they were doing it to the tunes of like, even dozens or hundreds or thousands of people looking at what they were saying. And there was nothing you could do to stop them. And you just had to let it go and you just had to sit there and take it over and over and over again. How I've described this to people is like I felt like I was like I'd already been knocked down. I'd already been knocked down. I'd already been laying on the floor with I a bloody nose laying on the floor, curled up in the fetal position, and then people just keep kicking and kicking and kicking and kicking, and there's nothing I can do to stop them. I just have to sit there and take it until they're done kicking, and they get to decide when they're done. I don't get to decide. They get to decide when they're done beating me. That's what it feels like. That's what it feels like. And when you're laying on that floor in the fetal position and people just keep kicking you and kicking you and kicking you and kicking you and you can't stop them. Now imagine there are tens of thousands of people watching and laughing. That's what that's like. Trust me, it doesn't matter if you have a platform and millions of followers. It doesn't matter. You're just a human being in that moment. And you know what? Honestly, I don't even care if she's wealthy. Now, she has thousands of Patreon subscribers, so I can't imagine that she's in the poorhouse. She has a New York Times bestselling book. I can't imagine she's in the poorhouse. But this isn't even about money, is the thing. Is people always say that it's just about money, or they say, oh, grifter, 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 as though money is the only thing that matters. Well, dude, again, when you're laying on that floor and someone is just kicking you and kicking you and kicking you and kicking you, trust me when I tell you the last thing that you're thinking about is money. It's not about money. It's about security. Oftentimes people think that things are about money when they're really about security. Money is security for a lot of people. If you have a lot of money, this is why J.K. Rowling has fuck you money, right? Like we talk about like fuck you money and the power of that. It's not about the money. It's about the security. It's about knowing that you're going to be okay, that you're going to be safe, that you have a safe place to rest your head at the end of the day. That's what that's about. These people don't see how similar these talking points are to the same boomer bootstrap parenting style that I thought most of us had agreed was abusive. That you need to toughen up, accept your punishment, except that even if the reaction was outsized, that you did something wrong. Because where there's smoke, there's fire. Grow a thicker skin. See, she's basically saying everything I said. These same people who always crow about believing victims, telling victims of public dog piles that they do not deserve to claim their trauma, let alone to process it because they deserved it. There is no such thing as cancel culture. There is no incentive/reward structure in places like Twitter to call people out. There is no updates, faves, followers, retweets for hotting a take on whomever is trending. What I read there is her describing the hopelessness of it. Because when you're in it, it does feel hopeless. I mean, I'm sure many of you have identified with this, maybe not like a public thing on like Twitter or something, but how many of you have bet like, "Oh, David's talking about it. I had a narcissistic boss once who hated me for my success. For about 6 months, the whole office was against me. I'd started making good money and didn't want to quit. It was hell." This is what David's talking about. It's the same thing. David, I know that position. I've coached many people in that type of position, and it's very, very, very similar. It's very similar. But many of you have probably been in positions like this. Magnus says, I tend to think the people who are kicking are the real grifters. After a beatdown, there is no more real entertainment to be had. The trouble is, a lot of people who join a mob beat down. That's exactly right, Magnus. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. I reread the 2015 essay Hot Allostatic Load for the first time in years last night, and I could not stop crying. Even reading some of these passages now, I could not stop crying, or can't stop crying. This was written from the perspective of a trans femme and discusses the same rhetorical devices used to demonize trans women specifically, which obviously does not apply to me, but some of it is spot on. One of the most common tools of exclusion is through mobbing, which is really talked about because unlike rape, murder, etc., it's not easy to pin it on a single person or scapegoat. Mobbing is emotional abuse practiced by a group of people, usually peers, over a period of time, through methods such as gaslighting, rumor mongering, and ostracization. It's most documented in workplace or academic environments, i.e., key points of capitalist tension, but is thoroughly institutionalized into feminist, queer, radical spaces as well. Here's why it's horrible. Well, we'll get to why it's horrible in a second, but she's absolutely right that ostracization and all of this stuff, it's classic bullying behavior, and it's mostly practiced by women on other women. This is like mean girl stuff. That's what she's talking about. It is real, and it hurts, and it cuts very, very deep, and it doesn't matter how many followers you have. How many women I'm just curious, how many women in the chat, and I guess men too, I probably shouldn't gender this. How many people in the chat have experienced bullying through people trying to excuse me, ostracize you, or gaslight you, or spread rumors about you? How many people have experienced something like that? One, it has an unusually strong power to damage the victim's relationship to society because it can't be written off as an outlier, as a singular monster. It reveals a fundamental truth about people that makes it difficult to trust ever again. People become like aliens, like a pack of animals that can turn on you as soon as some mysterious pheromone shift marks you for death. Yeah, it looks like a lot of you have experienced this type of thing. Yeah, emphasize scapegoating counts. Absolutely. Absolutely. A lot of you have experienced exactly what she's talking about. Dragon water. So you mean my whole life? Heck, I made my own special brand of cuties. Yeah. And so if you've experienced something like this, it's even more important for you to keep this in mind when it's happening to someone else. I'm really, and listen, I know I haven't always been perfect about this. I am really going to try not to engage in any sort of like cancel culture behavior, or like even in any of these like pile-on things moving forward. I think attacking people's ideas is fine. I don't think attacking people is okay. I think there's a difference between attacking a person's idea and attacking who they are as a person. And even if I'm attacking someone's idea, I'm not gonna organize a goddamn cancel mob against them. If they come at me, that's a different fucking thing. If they're coming at me, then it's goddamn war. But if I'm just being left to my own devices, I'm not going to engage in it. 2, the insidious nature of emotional abuse. How do you fight ostracization and rumors? They leave no bruises, they just starve you. Mobbing typically occurs in places where the victim is trapped by some need or obligation. Work, school, circle of friends, this can prolong exposure to damaging extremes. For these reasons, PTSD is an almost inevitable outcome of any protracted mobbing case. I think this is an oversimplification, Roberto. Roberto says Lindsay is like a dog fighting trainer that's mad the dog she have trained her. I think this is an oversimplification. I have already offered that I do believe that she had a role in creating this type of culture. But this is a gross oversimplification. It doesn't mean, I'm sorry, I don't think it means that people should be able to bully and mob her and we should view that as okay. We should never view bullying as okay. I don't care what she did to create woke culture. I don't care. I would like her to take more responsibility. And maybe that's part of why this is happening is that she's not taking responsibility, but that doesn't mean I'm not going to have empathy for her. What she's going through, a million people have gone through to various levels, to different levels, but we're even seeing here in the chat, people have gone through similar things. What she's talking, the experience she's talking about is real. Thank you for dealing with me hacking up a lung, guys. I appreciate it. As a reminder, it's only because I have COVID. Please mount that like button if you haven't already. The Isabel Fall case is almost a textbook example about how these online mobbing, mobbing harms people and how the people who participate in these mobs never engage in any self-reflection. Well, Lindsay's got to engage in self-reflection as well. But I do think that the people forming the mob should also engage in self-reflection. When people read Fall's helicopter story and question the trans bona fides of author in late 2020, Twitter did what Twitter does and ruined Fall's life. Death by a million cuts. No single person even beginning to question whether they did anything wrong by jumping to the worst possible faith interpretation of both the text and the author. After a profile written by Emily Vanderwolf was published in late 2021, were lessons learned about the way we use the internet mobs to tear down people we don't know because of situations we don't understand? No. One of Fall's detractors, Neon Yang, became the new scapegoat du jour, using some of the exact same tactics used the prior year to attack Fall. I'm not going to touch on Yang's original comment about Fall or the pushback on them, but what was downright charming in its lack of self-awareness about the whole situation was the way people used Fall's trauma to hurt Yang. The way they invoked Fall being checked into the hospital while Yang says whatever about Fall in the helicopter story, all while having absolutely no idea what was going on in Yang's private life. What's particularly galling is how many people accuse Yang of sending a trans person to the hospital with PTSD while apparently being completely oblivious to the fact that they could very well be doing the same thing to Yang, a non-binary trans person. There was no lesson learned on the nature of mindless dogpiling. Just Twitter doing what Twitter does, failing to examine systems of abuse, while continuing to perpetuate them by laying into a new scapegoat. Again, a quote from Hot Allostatic Load, feminist queer spaces are more willing to criticize people than abusive systems because they want to reserve the right to use those systems for their own purposes. And again, I'm not excusing the woke shit by any stretch of the imagination. At least attacking people can be politically viable, especially in a token system where you benefit directly by their absence or where your status as a good feminist is dependent on constantly rooting out evil. God dang. When the bounty system calls for the ears of evil people, while most people have a fucking ear. Ha, it's true. Listen, man. Roberto says, I just have little empathy first, and she helped create it. Roberto, if you have ever engaged in a cancel mob whatsoever, you're guilty too. Anyone who has ever engaged in a cancel mob, you've got a part of this too, man. Anyone who has ever engaged in a cancel mob has helped perpetuate cancel culture, and that includes me because I've engaged in cancel mobs and I deeply regret that. I do not regret defending myself when people come at me, which is almost always what I'm doing. But for the times that I have proactively engaged in a pile-on against someone, I have a responsibility in perpetuating cancel culture, and so does anyone else who ever has. And we should own our responsibility there because you can't at one point say, I hate cancel culture, and then in the same breath say, but I'll engage in a dog pile if there's one. I'll smell blood in the water and attack it like a shark. We all have to be reflective about how this culture got created because it didn't happen by accident. You can't have cancel mobs if people don't create or don't participate in the mob. Something else that was also inevitable, I was going to quit YouTube. I knew I couldn't do it forever, that I was running out of steam, that I was sick of the increasing dehumanization inherent, that I just didn't have anything to say about movies anymore. The plan was always to end with Love Never Dies, since that seemed to be the best place to end, with some semblance of energy rather than keeping it on until I'd weathered away to nothing. What happened to me in March and April hastened it, but it was always inevitable. My initial plan was to leave YouTube for Nebula, but I realize now that that is only entrenching myself in a more intimate form of harm rather than a broad buckshot kind that YouTube invites. I won't go into details, not right now anyway, but I can't do video content for them either. I can't make content, period. I just can't do this anymore. There is no healing as long as there is attachment to a thing that makes you suffer, and that thing in this case is being in the public eye at all. Yo, I totally identify with that. I hate being in the public eye. No offense to you guys that are watching. This has nothing to do with you. It's just never something that I've liked. It's never something that I wanted. Now I do it because listen, when I was doing I mean I still do where I oh god, I have a business proposal I need to write today. Speaking of organizational psychology, I have a proposal I need to write. But you know, when I was at my like height with my organizational psychology practice and I was keynoting and speaking at conferences all over the place and I was speaking at some of the biggest HR conferences in the world, and when I spoke at like the Society for Human Resources Management is the biggest conference in the world for what I do. And they really liked me, and they would put me in the biggest rooms that they had that weren't like their main stage keynotes because I never quite got to like that keynote status. I was like a more like mid-level keynote person. Maybe someday would have gotten to that status. Who knows? Had I not decided to start complaining and talking about politics on the internet. But I was speaking to really big rooms, and even in some of the biggest rooms at the biggest HR conference in the world, I spoke to maybe 1,000 people, maybe 2,000. If it was a really big room. On here, on the reason I kept going with this public stuff is on YouTube, I get to speak to that every single day and usually probably more. And so there's a blessing there with the public stuff. There's a blessing in that I have the ability to reach many more people than I would have otherwise reached. But that comes with drawback too. It comes with being on camera. It comes from being in the public, and that I have not yet gotten used to. So I absolutely understand her apprehension there. It's not the thing. It's like what I would say about being in the public eye. It's like people there are people out there who do this that just want to be famous. They just want people to know their name. They want people to know who they are. They look for that form of self-validation. But the advice I would give to anyone who thinks that that's so great is that I don't think if you don't love yourself for who you are, no amount of external validation is going to give you the love that you're seeking. It's just not. And I think a lot of people get into this and stick with it because it feels like they're getting all this validation from strangers on the internet. And it's like, You can give it to yourself. You don't need to be famous on the internet to do it. I'm probably one of the most unimpressed people with, like, internet, like, notoriety. I'm like, "I just don't care. I don't care if you have 10 billion followers. I don't care. If you're a good person, you're a good person. If you're not a good person, you're not a good person, and that's really all that matters to me at the end of the day." What I wanted was to quietly disappear, but since this is a platform where people are paying me to make content, I feel like I have to make a statement. If it were just me by myself, I would just sign off and say goodbye and that would be it. But I have a team who depends on my company for health insurance, and including dependents, I supply full benefits for 8 people. And here in the US, employer based insurance is often the only feasible option. Saying to everyone, sorry about your children, but they can't have insurance anymore because Twitter makes me sad really doesn't seem like a fair deal. None of them, incidentally, know I'm posting this. Well, listen, I respect her desire to take care of the team of people that she's built. But there are other ways to handle this. I mean, she could offer them like a really generous, like, several months worth of like insurance benefits and even salary if she wanted to. If she wants to quit, she can take care of these people. Um, but it's a job. It's a job. It's a job like any other. And I think that she can go out of her way to take care of her people while also taking care of herself. And I don't think that she should feel guilty about taking care of herself in this equation. Like her life is, I'm sorry, I don't care how much money Lindsay Ellis has, I don't care how many patrons she has. Her life is not less important than other people's lives. Her mental health is not less important than other people's mental health, regardless of whether she created this woke nonsense or not. And God knows that she was not the only influence on it. She was just one of many, many, many perpetrators. So the only thing I can do now for now is keep this page active with the loose promise that someday I'll figure out something in the future to make up for this, while asking you to please stop messaging me apologizing for not being able to subscribe anymore. You don't owe me anything. This Patreon is, like my own life career, just running on fumes. But all I know now is that being in the public eye at all is a losing game and I regret all of it. I wish she wouldn't regret all of it. I mean, I'm sure she helped a lot of people, or at least made a lot of people happy. I regret every time I've ever stood up for anyone, it always backfires. Oh, girl. I feel that like you cannot even imagine. I regret every time I've ever stood up for anyone, it always backfires. Let me tell you guys what. I like to help people. I'm a psychologist. I do this because I like to help people. I like to support people. I like to make people happy. But man, some of the people that I have supported in the last 2 years that have gone on to stab me in the back, it really makes me like, I was actually literally having this conversation with Joshua, like, 2 hours ago, where I was saying, "I'm never helping anyone ever again because it is always taken advantage of, it is always abused, I always end up regretting it." Joshua's, like, trying his best, he's like, "Carlin, you need to be able to work with people." I was like, "Nope, I'm just gonna do it myself. I can do it all myself, I don't need to work with anyone. F everyone, I'm out." And that makes me really sad because I love helping and supporting people, but it really does always seem to backfire. It really does. I cannot tell you guys how many people I have helped and supported because I felt so guilty that my platform grew so quickly and theirs didn't. I did it because I felt so fucking guilty. And almost every single one of those people that I have helped in any significant way has now stabbed me in the back and is lying about me on the internet and forgets the money I gave them, or the promotion that I gave them, or the shows that I gave them to try to help them build their platform, or the free locals memberships, or the money I gave them to take someone else out for drinks to do whatever. It's like none of that stuff even matters. Or the people that I introduced them to, the connections that I introduced them to. It's like I could go on for days about the ways in which I've helped people in which they haven't taken, in which they've like, not ever thanked me. And so the reason I say this is not to make anyone here feel guilty because you guys are watching because you support me in some way. But like, if people help you out, man, don't stab them in the back. Just be a good person. Just be a good person. I regret every time I pushed back against something unjust. It was always just used to hurt me. I feel that as well. I regret pushing back against the anti-white stuff. I really do. I regret it because it brought a massive amount of shit down on the top of my head. And when I proved emphatically that everything I said was the truth, it was never even acknowledged. Well, I shouldn't say it wasn't acknowledged. It was acknowledged by many of you. It was acknowledged by parents in these anti-CRT groups that I was trying to show them what was going on so that they would know that like legitimate white identitarians were recruiting in their anti-CRT groups. So I shouldn't say that no one appreciated it because I think that they did, but more bad for me has been created out of that than good. So I do regret it. I very much regret it. I regret every time I ever stood up for myself. I never did it correctly. Yep, guilty. I regret every time I showed any vulnerability, just more ammunition to be used against me later. I have absolutely no doubt that the things that I'm saying on this live stream right now will be used against me later. Clock it. I regret every time I ever tried to play the game with peers and colleagues. They will drop you the second you aren't popular on Twitter anymore. True. Not everyone, but a lot of them. It's all hollow and brittle. And there is one thing I have learned this year. It is how eminently expendable I am. Well, everyone is eminently expendable. Everyone is eminently expendable, and you guys should all know this. Even the biggest star in the YouTube universe is eminently expendable. Because there's always going to be another person. There's always going to be another person that's going to work harder or have prettier graphics or be hotter or any of these things that people like to watch. I don't even know what people like to watch. I'm just like talking on the internet. I have no idea. I have no idea why people watch me most of the time. But everyone is expendable. And I actually think that there's freedom in that because it gives us all freedom to be who we want to be, to move on to the next thing if we want to. But I get what she's saying. I really do. The good, progressive, cis, straight, wealthy white men keep on trucking and coming out on top, and because deep down they know the systems they profess to stand against ultimately exist to benefit them. Now, this line, it almost feels right. It almost feels in this paragraph, this entire paragraph, she showed so much vulnerability there, and that's so beautiful. I agree with everything she said in this whole first part of this paragraph. And then you get to this last line. She's like, I gotta say something woke. I gotta say something woke. I gotta say something woke. Lindsay, why didn't you just edit? She obviously wrote this stream of conscious. She's a great writer. I could have done without that line. It doesn't fit in with the rest of the paragraph. She should have just allowed, you know what this is? This is a defense against being vulnerable. She was incredibly vulnerable in all of this. That's incredibly vulnerable writing. And then she was like, I don't feel safe. I don't feel safe. I've got to blame it on the white, cis, wealthy white men. That's what that is. And to all the people telling me I need to grow a thicker skin or remove myself from the conversation altogether, you are right. I don't have it in me to do the former, so I shall do the latter. Hope your new year is better than this. You know, I give her credit. I give her credit for taking care of herself. I give her credit for doing what she felt like she needed to do to be happy. And I hope she finds happiness. I really do. I hope that she finds happiness, and I hope she finds the peace that she's looking for. And again, I'm not going to pretend that like Lindsay Ellis is like, woe is me, because she's got a lot of stuff going for her. She really does. And I'm sure she'll continue to be successful in whatever she's doing. But I think that she showed a lot more vulnerability with this post than people are giving her credit for. And I think that anyone on the internet who has ever been canceled, whether they want to admit it or not, can probably identify with some of these things. You know, a lot of people think that this is just about entertainment. Are you not entertained? But there are real people behind these videos. There are real people with real feelings, with real emotions, with real baggage, and it doesn't matter how many followers they have, or how many likes they get, or how many Twitter followers they have, or how many people watch them, or any of these things. None of that matters at the end of the day if their human needs are not being met. And it sounds like this became a soul-sucking enterprise for her, and she decided to get out, and good for her. I hope she goes on to find something else that makes her happy. Because at the end of the day, that's what we really should be shooting for. If you're shooting for fame, I promise you it's not gonna make you happy. Do you know how many wealthy people are really unhappy? It's okay to do the opposite of what the crowd wants you to do. You know? These are all real people. So, I guess maybe just let's hopefully keep that in mind. I know you guys get it. I see you in the chat. Uh, the more you want other people, especially the ones you don't know, to be happy, the more you're going to be happy, because what we want for other people are inherently gifts that we're giving ourselves. So those are my thoughts on Lindsay Ellis's farewell letter. I would love to talk to her about this. I wonder if she would ever talk to me. I'm like a no one. I don't know. But I really did identify with a lot of the things that she said in this letter, and I totally get it. Maybe I'll send her an email. Who knows? Maybe I'll send her an email. All right, guys, that's all I have for this, because in about 20 minutes, I'm going live in my locals community for our locals community Zoom, and there is still time for you to join. Now, the first thing I want you to do before you do anything else is make sure you mount that like button, okay? If you have not yet subscribed to the channel, I hope you will subscribe today, and I appreciate your subscription. But the very next thing I want you to do is join my locals, and you can do that at kb.locals.com. Bing! But there has never been a better time to join locals, and we don't know how much longer this offer is going to go, because we have our special Carlin's Got COVID offer, where you can get 1 month for free in my locals. So guys, there's no excuse. If you have never been to one of my locals community Zooms, one starts in 20 minutes and you can get in for free. The way you get in for free is to go to kb.locals.com/support, or by following the link I have pinned to the top of the chat in YouTube. And we'll just even do this again, just in case. Oh, frig, it's not letting me. Okay, we'll do it again. You go, make sure you have your promo code COVID. It's only good for a monthly thing. So get your free month in locals. Now, if you really like me and you want to join for the full year, you can do that for $50 a year. You can also make a one-time gift. And if you make a one-time gift, guys, just so you know, one of the reasons I like taking one-time gifts through my locals is that not only do you get to make a one-time gift to support the work I'm doing, which is very much appreciated to me, but you actually unlock all the features of locals based on however large that one-time gift is. So it's like a twofer. It's not like just sending it through PayPal, or you can actually do crypto now. I set up a whole bunch of crypto wallets, but this is the only way that you get access to my locals features. So please come and join my locals. Join us for our community Zoom call. And if I don't see you there, hopefully I will see you tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern time, because I'm now streaming at 5 p.m. every day except for Saturdays. On Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, I am live on this channel every single day. Who knows what I'm going to talk about each day? You got to check back in to see what I'm thinking about. I kind of decide on the day. But on Fridays, hang on, I don't know how my stream works. Okay, on Fridays, I actually go live on my second YouTube channel called Actively Unwoke, and we do happy hour on Fridays. We did a great happy hour this past week. So it's the exact same time. It's 5 p.m. It's just on a different channel, Actively Unwoke. You can subscribe in the description below. And we do our regular happy hour stream where we watch a woke training and we make fun of it. And we do all sorts of other stuff. All right, guys, that's all I have. Thank you for hanging out with me. Thank you for suffering through me having COVID and coughing and having a weird voice. I will see some of you in my locals very, very soon in 20 minutes. Let's go take a bathroom break. Let's get a cup. I'm going to get a cup of tea. You guys want a cup of tea? I want a cup of tea. I'm going to go make a cup of tea. I will see you guys in locals. If I don't see you, I will see you back 5 p.m. tomorrow on this channel. All right, guys, take care, and we'll see you soon.